A pristine ancient ceramic jar of gochujang, the heart of the Han Group's heritage product, lay open on a desk, its deep red surface spoiled by a thick, unnatural layer of white mold. A hand slammed down on the sleek glass beside it. The sound was sharp, echoing through the vast, sterile office that overlooked the financial district of New York. Jae-Hyun, the CEO, stood motionless, his tailored suit emphasizing his rigid control, but his eyes betrayed a cold financial panic. He looked down at his new wife, Aisha, who was quietly polishing the chrome desk leg. She wore a simple, practical uniform, the harsh office lights catching the determined set of her jaw. A cold, dismissive laugh cut the silence. Sora, the chief operations manager and Jae-Hyun's self-appointed rival for his affection, entered, dropping a stack of failure reports like a death sentence. Another 50,000 units spoiled, Sora's voice dripped with venom. Jae-Hyun, this is what happens when you prioritize an empty show over saving the legacy. The investors are demanding to know why the CEO married a woman who scrubs floors better than she manages a spreadsheet. Jae-Hyun stared at the moldy jar, a symbol of his crumbling empire. Aisha is here for my grandfather's peace of mind, Sora. You know the Han tradition, he stated, his voice flat and devoid of warmth. She stays. Aisha, ignoring the insult, focused on the spoiled jar. Her fingers, covered in cleaning gloves, twitched with a desire to examine the cultures within. Sora, determined to prove her own corporate value, took a vial of expensive chemical preservative from her briefcase, planning to inject it into a new test batch of the heritage paste. The investors don't care about tradition, Jae-Hyun. They care about stability. I have a contact in the District of Columbia Patent Office who can expedite the licensing for this chemical preservative. It's the only way to stabilize the shelf life. Sora didn't wait for his permission. She turned to Aisha, holding the vial like a corporate weapon. You. Cleaner. Dispose of this ancient filth carefully. She pushed the moldy jar toward Aisha's cleaning cart. Aisha met Sora's cold gaze. Her reply was soft, but it resonated with unexpected intelligence. Chemical preservation only hides the failure. The flavor profile will change. The Han tradition is built on complex deep flavor, not chemicals. The office fell silent. Jae-Hyun looked up sharply, genuinely surprised by her technical critique. Sora laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. Did you hear that, Jae-Hyun? The maid is now the food scientist. Did your curriculum include fermentation dynamics in your cleaning course? Sora stepped closer, asserting her dominance. You're here because your quiet nature pleased the old man. Nothing more. Don't confuse that with value. Aisha maintained her calm. Her scientific mind, however, was already analyzing the spoiled jar. This wasn't just mold, it was a symptom and instruction. She wheeled her cart away, taking the jar with her. Jae-Hyun watched her retreat, a flicker of professional curiosity crossing his face. She had spoken like an expert. But that was only the beginning. The scene shifted abruptly to the Han Group's sterile, stainless steel corporate test kitchen, located deep in the basement of the New York building. Sora was overseeing the chemical preservative test batch. The air was heavy with the smell of harsh chemicals, clashing offensively with the expected deep, earthy aroma of fermented peppers. The atmosphere was tight with professional stress. A senior technician, James, sampled the paste and visibly recoiled. Sora, the texture is rubbery. And the heat, it's gone flat. It tastes like expensive plastic. Sora slammed her fist on the counter. Fix it, James. The Lee Group is breathing down our necks in Massachusetts. They have a better shelf life, and if we don't present a stable product next week, they will take the Imperial contract, and Han Group will be finished. Aisha, officially on a break, was hidden away in a small, forgotten storage room nearby. The moldy jar sat on a stainless steel table under a weak, flickering light. She removed her gloves. Her actions were meticulous, almost ritualistic. She pulled out a small notebook filled with intricate diagrams, not of cleaning schedules but of microbial cultures, temperature graphs, and molecular structures. In the corner of the notebook, a tiny, faded picture showed her grandmother, her hands stained with red pepper and soil. Aisha murmured to herself, her voice a low stream of determination. Grandma Han was right. The problem isn't the preservation, it's the starter culture. They killed it with speed and temperature control. She retrieved a tiny sealed vial from a specially insulated thermos in her cleaning cart, the one Jae-Hyun had questioned. Inside was a complex, live enzyme culture she had developed, a method passed down through her own family's traditional food preparation. It smelled faintly sweet and sharp, alive with potential. What she did next changed everything. Aisha knew time was short. She could hear Sora's furious shouting echoing down the hall. With high-stakes precision, Aisha used a sterile pipette to transfer a minuscule, concentrated drop of her culture into the failing test batch of paste in James's sampling tray. She then quickly and thoroughly wiped down the stainless steel counter with alcohol, erasing any trace of her activity. She replaced her cleaning uniform, her heart pounding, but her hands were steady. She left the storage room just as James, defeated, was about to dispose of the failed sample. He paused, noticing a subtle, miraculous change in the color and texture of the paste in his tray. It looked more vibrant, more alive. He hesitantly dipped his finger and tasted it. His eyes widened in pure, scientific disbelief. James, overwhelmed by the flavor, rushed back toward the main kitchen. Sora was waiting by the entrance, glaring. "Did you fix it, James? What's the verdict on the chemical solution?" James swallowed, the complex, deep flavor still resonating on his tongue. It was impossible. He cleared his throat and looked Sora straight in the eye, his voice shaky with astonishment. "Sora," he said. "The flavor, it just came back. It tastes exactly like the original recipe." Sora smiled, a triumphant, cold victory curling her lips. "The chemical worked. See, Jae-Hyun? We saved the company." James shook his head, looking past Sora to see Aisha disappearing down the service hall, pushing her unassuming cleaning cart. He couldn't risk exposing her, or this miracle. He said nothing more, the unspoken question hanging in the air as he watched Aisha's figure recede. He didn't know the truth yet. Did Aisha's plan just work, or did she put a target on her back? Like this video if you love seeing the villain get served, and subscribe so you don't miss the next move. She was just the cleaner, but she held the fate of a billion-dollar company in her hands. The massive mahogany conference table in Washington state reflected the pale, anxious faces of the Han Group investors. They were fixated on Jae-Hyun, their silence broken only by the sharp, impatient tapping of a pen. Sora stood at the presentation screen, her smile brittle, gesturing to the sudden jump in successful distribution reports. "Gentlemen, the flavor problem is solved. The stabilizer has secured the shelf life, and the early returns from the District of Columbia test are exceptional. The imperial contract is ours." Jae-Hyun, however, was on edge, distracted by the mystery of the recovered flavor. He needed the official technical report. James burst in, looking flustered but vibrating with excitement. James approached the table, placing 3 small, sealed tasting jars, the failed original Sora's chemically stabilized batch, and the sample containing the secret enzyme. He spoke with professional urgency. "The chemically treated batch is stable, but the flavor profile is not authentic. We did one final experimental batch. We think we've hit the exact original flavor profile, and it is stable." Sora interjected immediately, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Experimental? Who authorized that, James? We do not run unauthorized trials on company time." Jae-Hyun ignored her, his attention fixed on the third, vibrant jar. "Pass the samples. Let the investors decide." The investors sampled the failed jars. They hesitated, their faces drawn, before the third. David, the oldest and most influential investor, took a spoonful of the third sample. The moment the paste hit his tongue, his rigid posture collapsed. His eyes widened and a slow, genuine smile spread across his face, wet with unexpected nostalgia. "Impossible," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "This is the flavor of my childhood." A palpable wave of relief washed over the room. Sora's face, however, was a mask of cold fury, her personal victory stolen by this unnamed process. David looked at James. "The shelf life. Is this stable?" James confirmed the stability. "It has a depth, a complexity, a live culture that survived the entire process." Jae-Hyun felt a surge of professional triumph, yet a deep, nagging curiosity remained. He had not authorized this fix. "Who developed this?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. James stammered, looking fearfully at Sora, then desperately at Jae-Hyun. "It was an unauthorized intervention. I can't disclose the exact method yet." He didn't know the truth yet. Sora pounced on the technical breach. She knew James feared her corporate power. "Unauthorized means theft, Jae-Hyun. Someone is running rogue experiments and jeopardizing the integrity of the product. This recipe, whatever it is, needs to be dissected and patented immediately, or the Lee Group will steal it. Jae-Hyun, his mind immediately shifting to legal security, gave James a direct, non-negotiable order: find the source. Secure the method. Now. Later that afternoon, Aisha was scrubbing the marble tiles of the executive washroom. The strong, natural vinegary scent of her preferred cleaner filled the air. She hummed a tune, her spirit lifted by the knowledge of her successful, secret intervention. She knew James would be searching for the source of the flavor. She just needed one more night to refine the full method. She needed a vital ingredient, the aged, complex starter base, stored in a heavily refrigerated vault in the basement, the irreplaceable source of the Han Group's original, failing cultures. She slipped her cleaning cart into a rarely used service elevator, riding it down to the vault floor. The vault's security was digital, easily bypassed by the temporary, high-level code Jae-Hyun had given her for his private office access. She used the code, her breath catching in her throat. Inside the cold, sterile vault, row upon row of gleaming, ancient Han Group culture jars sat waiting. She quickly located the oldest, most active culture, the most valuable jar in the entire company. She opened her insulated thermos, intending to take only a tiny, stabilizing sample. But as she did, a sudden, piercing noise sliced through the silence of the vault, the sound of a large security door sliding shut and locking. She was trapped. The air in the vault grew heavy with fear. A slow, deliberate laugh echoed from the corner of the vault. Sora stepped out of the shadows, holding a portable security override panel. Her face was a study in cold triumph. Looking for something, Aisha? Sora walked toward her, the rhythmic click of her expensive heels loud on the concrete floor. I knew James couldn't have developed that flavor. He's a glorified blender. But you, the cleaner with the suspicious knowledge. Sora's eyes raked over Aisha's simple uniform and the insulated thermos in her hand. I knew you were touching the product. Aisha instinctively hid the ancient culture jar behind her body. I was authorized to access the building after hours. I was just retrieving cleaning supplies from this refrigerated storage. Sora laughed, shaking her head. Don't insult my intelligence. I saw the look on David's face. That flavor, that life, came from you. And now I have you standing right next to the most valuable asset in the Han Group. Sora's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, laced with icy malice. You married Jae-Hyun for a piece of the Han legacy. You thought you could rise above your station with some kitchen witchcraft. She gestured to the ancient culture jar. But this legacy is mine. I will simply take the sample you prepared, patent it myself, and expose you as the thief you are. Jae-Hyun will divorce you before the sun rises. Now hand over the culture. Aisha clutched the precious jar tighter, her face etched with quiet defiance. This culture, it's sensitive. You don't understand the method. You'll kill it before you even reach the lab. Sora smiled, a victorious, cold smile. I don't need to understand it, Aisha. I just need to steal it. Sora raised the security panel, ready to trigger the alarm and frame Aisha as a corporate spy caught red-handed. She didn't know who she was truly fighting. Sora is trapped, but what does she have planned once she gets out? Comment below with your best guess, and share this with a friend who loves high-stakes drama. Sora had triggered the alarm and framed the innocent wife. But she didn't realize Aisha's greatest power wasn't a degree, it was family knowledge. The high-pitched, piercing alarm blared, echoing off the steel walls of the refrigerated vault in the New York basement. Sora had triggered the security system, and the heavy door was beginning its slow, agonizing grind shut. Her face was a triumphant mask of cruelty, illuminated by the flashing red light. You see, Aisha? Now you're caught. Theft of intellectual property, it carries a significant sentence. Aisha reacted instantly. Instead of panicking, she hurled her cleaning bucket, full of water and her strong vinegary enzyme cleaner, directly at Sora's face. The harsh, cold liquid hit Sora, making her stumble backward with a sharp cry of pain. Aisha didn't wait. She snatched Sora's portable security panel, her mind racing. Aisha fumbled with the panel, her knowledge of electronics rudimentary, but her desperation absolute. The door was closing fast. Sora, wiping the burning solution from her eyes, shrieked. You won't escape. Jae-Hyun trusts me, not the cleaning staff. Aisha ignored the insult, focusing on the panel's tiny, complex interface. She found the lock override function, guessing at the password. She remembered Jae-Hyun's birthday, but it was incorrect. She tried his grandfather's birthday, access granted. The massive door hissed, locking into place, and the alarm abruptly silenced. Sora was now trapped inside the vault, her face a horrifying picture of panic and disbelief. Aisha, holding the ancient culture jar and the override panel, stood on the free side. Sora hammered against the thick glass viewport of the door, her voice muffled and desperate. "Let me out? You can't leave me here. This is freezing. Jae-Hyun will destroy you." Aisha looked through the glass at Sora's frantic, desperate face. Her own expression was hard, professional, and utterly calm. "You were caught with an unauthorized security panel, attempting to compromise the most valuable asset in the Han Group," Aisha stated, her voice even and low, chillingly mimicking corporate formality. "The video feed will show you triggered the alarm yourself." She held up the panel. "I believe this is yours. I will leave it with building security." What she said next changed everything. Aisha held the ancient culture jar up so Sora could see it clearly. "You don't understand the recipe. You don't understand the value of the culture. I do. This recipe is more than a tradition, it's a living science that requires respect. You nearly killed it with your chemicals." She tucked the jar safely into her thermos and slid the security panel into the drop slot outside the vault. "This is the price of silence, Sora. You stay trapped until morning. If you dare to mention my name to Jae-Hyun, I will show him the footage of you trying to steal his legacy." Aisha turned and disappeared into the service corridor. The scene shifts to the CEO's office. Jae-Hyun is sitting alone, staring at the panoramic lights of New York. He is wrestling with the inexplicable success of the new flavor and the unsettling mystery of the missing source. He glances at a framed photo of his grandmother, a strong, kind woman known for her culinary genius and her non-traditional wisdom. He was forced to marry Aisha to honor his grandmother's final wish, but he didn't understand why. He picked up his phone and called James, the technician. James sounded tired, whispering that he couldn't find the source, but that his own small test sample was continuing to improve overnight. Jae-Hyun hung up, his professional confusion deepening into a personal dilemma. He took a sip of water, but his attention was caught by a faint, unfamiliar scent clinging to his desk, a mix of natural cleanser and a subtle, earthy, complex aroma. He didn't know the truth yet. The next morning, Sora, shivering and humiliated, was released from the vault, claiming a malfunction and refusing to discuss the incident with security. She rushed straight to Jae-Hyun's office in a state of controlled fury. Aisha was already there, tidying his desk, her uniform crisp and her demeanor placid. Sora immediately launched a cold attack. "Jae-Hyun, the Lee Group just scheduled an emergency meeting in Connecticut next week. They want to show us their new heritage product. We need to present a stable, complete, and patented recipe to secure the contract." She eyed Aisha with burning hatred. "We need to secure the original culture, and James still can't figure out where the improved flavor came from." Jae-Hyun looked from the frantic Sora to the calm Aisha. Aisha spoke, her voice calm and clear. "The Han Group product can't be rushed. Any quick fix will ruin the long-term flavor. You need patience and the right starting ingredients." Sora scoffed. "Patience? We are losing millions. What do you know about ingredients? Get back to your cleaning." Aisha met Jae-Hyun's gaze. "I know that sometimes the most important ingredients are the ones you can't buy, the ones that are grown in a specific way, with a specific understanding of the fermentation process." Jae-Hyun leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "What are you suggesting, Aisha?" Aisha hesitated, knowing this was her chance to save the company and herself. "I suggest we analyze the source of the flavor, not the chemical solution. I noticed the failing culture was missing a specific, live enzyme that is essential for deep fermentation. It's an element often overlooked in modern, large-scale production." Sora rolled her eyes, but Jae-Hyun was listening. "And where would we find this overlooked element?" Aisha replied simply, "In the soil, in the hands of the people who truly understand traditional, natural growth methods." Sora sneered, a triumphant look in her eyes. "She's trying to sell you peasant secrets, Jae-Hyun. Ignore her. She's delaying the patent process." Jae-Hyun, however, looked past Sora's anger. He remembered the feeling of tasting the third sample, the sudden memory of his grandmother's kitchen. He made a snap decision that shocked them both. "Sora, cancel the Connecticut trip. We're not relying on patents or chemicals. We are going to the source of the flavor. Aisha, he commanded, his eyes meeting hers, holding a silent challenge. You said you know where to find these ingredients. You're coming with me. Lead the way. Aisha nodded once, her calm exterior hiding a surging wave of triumph. Her secret mission was now her official duty. The corporate wife was becoming the culinary savior. The CEO finally saw a glimpse of Aisha's genius. Do you think he'll start trusting her now? Hit the like button if you think this power couple is about to take down the villain. Jae-Hyun made his decision. He would trust the woman in the cleaning uniform over his own blood. They were leaving New York, but they had no idea who was waiting for them. The high-powered Han Group corporate jet sliced through the clear air, descending over the sun-drenched vineyards and rich, dark earth of California. Jae-Hyun sat opposite Aisha, watching her. She wasn't preparing presentations or reviewing spreadsheets. She was examining soil samples she had secretly collected from the company's test lab in New York. The atmosphere between them was a tense mix of suspicion and intrigue. Sora was deliberately excluded from the trip, furious back in New York, and Jae-Hyun felt a strange sense of freedom. He finally addressed the tension. You said the flavor is in the hands of the people who understand traditional, natural growth methods. Where are we going, Aisha? Aisha sealed the soil samples, her eyes meeting his. We are going to a small farm near Napa Valley. It is owned by an old friend of my family, James. Not the technician, but a man who treats soil like a living organism. He grows specific peppers and herbs with methods developed over generations. Methods that treat the soil microbes as partners. Jae-Hyun was incredulous. You dragged the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate across the country for a gardening lesson? We need a scientific solution, not folklore. Aisha shook her head, her tone serious. The Han Group product relies on a complex, live fermentation that only happens when the initial ingredients are grown in soil with specific, healthy, active cultures. The problem isn't the process, it's the dead ingredients you were buying. They arrived at the small, vibrant farm. The air was rich with the scent of damp earth, sweet peppers, and sun-warmed herbs. It was the antithesis of the sterile, chemical-smelling Han offices. The farmer, an elderly, warm-faced man named David, Aisha's friend, greeted them. David's hands were rough and knowledgeable. He looked at Aisha, then Jae-Hyun, who was clearly out of place in his expensive suit. So you're the CEO who married my favorite niece, David said, his eyes twinkling. Aisha, I see you still haven't learned to buy a decent broom. Aisha laughed, a genuine, easy sound that Jae-Hyun realized he had never heard from her before. It was a beautiful sound. David led them to a hidden plot of deep red peppers, nurtured under the California sun. These peppers are special. They carry the flavor of the earth. But the secret isn't the fruit, it's the starter in the soil. He didn't know the truth yet. Jae-Hyun watched Aisha and David move through the garden, talking about soil pH, microbial counts, and unique composting techniques, terms that were highly scientific but rooted in traditional, hands-on knowledge. He realized Aisha wasn't just a cleaner or a quiet wife, she was a genuine expert food scientist who understood the deep, complicated mechanics of life in the soil. He walked over to her. Why didn't you tell me? Why work as a cleaner when you have this knowledge? Aisha knelt, running her fingers through the warm, dark soil. Your grandmother, before she died, insisted that the Han legacy would only survive if it was married to true understanding. She also knew your corporate team would never listen to a cleaning lady or a woman you married for status. She asked me to wait for the product to fail to prove my worth through action, not a resume. What she said next changed everything. Aisha held up a clump of the rich soil. This soil, these active cultures, are the secret ingredient to your grandmother's recipe. They must be maintained and added directly to the fermentation base. The chemicals your company used killed them all. She pulled out the thermos containing the ancient Han culture jar she had saved from the vault. The culture was almost dead. But I used a method passed down from my own family, a slow brew enzyme culture, to revive it, using ingredients I sourced here in California. Jae-Hyun felt the full weight of her hidden power. Not only did she save the company, she did it under his nose, enduring humiliation to honor a promise to his grandmother. He felt a sudden, sharp pang of regret for his arrogance. Back in New York, Sora had successfully manipulated the security footage from the vault, deleting the critical moments that showed her locking Aisha inside, and editing the feed to show Aisha near the vault controls moments before the alarm. She was preparing to present this evidence to the board in New York the moment Jae-Hyun returned. But that was only the beginning. That evening, Jae-Hyun and Aisha were alone. The California dusk was soft and fragrant. Jae-Hyun walked toward her, his formal corporate rigidity finally cracking. Sora is my cousin, but she will destroy the company to seize control. When we get back to New York, she will present her manufactured evidence that you broke into the vault. I need proof that you are the only one who can save the company. I need the full refined recipe to patent it before Sora can use the little information she has. Aisha looked at the ancient culture jar, now vibrant and alive again, sitting on the wooden table. The recipe isn't just a list of steps, Jae-Hyun. It requires an understanding of balance, how to blend tradition with the new world. It requires two cultures working together. Jae-Hyun reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and gently touched the jar. Teach me, Aisha. Teach me the balance. Aisha smiled, a genuine, trusting smile. I will. But first you have to trust me to confront Sora on my terms. Your grandmother's wisdom was about more than food, it was about trust. She looked him directly in the eyes. When we return to the New York office, I will need you to side with me, the cleaner, against your cousin, the manager, in front of the entire board. Do you trust me enough for that, husband? Jae-Hyun looked into her eyes, seeing not a cleaner, but the woman who held the fate of his family's legacy, and his heart, in her knowledgeable hands. He nodded, once firmly. I do. The final confrontation was set. This episode had the ultimate reveal. Subscribe to our channel for more hidden genius stories, and comment if you love seeing Aisha use her science to save the day. The truth was finally out, and the couple was reunited. But back in New York, the villain was setting a final trap. The next boardroom meeting would be a fight for everything. The Han Group board meeting was held in the executive conference room in New York, a tense, silent arena of power and suspicion. The room was packed, the key investors, including the influential David, present and alert. Sora stood at the front, coolly controlling the narrative, a flash drive containing the manipulated vault footage clutched in her hand. Jae-Hyun sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of neutral judgment. He looked across the table at Aisha, who was seated in a corner chair, dressed in her simple signature uniform, the cleaner. Sora began her presentation, her voice sharp and authoritative. The mystery flavor is solved, but the security breach is not. We have evidence of corporate espionage from an unexpected source. Sora projected a diagram showing a spike in vault access using a temporary, high-level CEO code. While Mr. Jae-Hyun was preoccupied with his impulsive trip to California, the most valuable asset in the company, the ancient culture base, was compromised. This person, utilizing unauthorized access, spent 30 minutes alone in the vault. Sora paused for maximum effect, her eyes sweeping over the disgusted investors. She pointed to Aisha. The person responsible is Aisha, the woman Jae-Hyun married for status. She is not a food scientist, she is a common thief who exploited her position to steal our intellectual property. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. David frowned, his trust wavering. Sora inserted the flash drive. I have the security footage to prove her malice. The screen flickered, showing Aisha unlocking the vault, then quickly grabbing the ancient culture jar. The footage had been expertly edited to cut out the crucial moments showing Sora's presence and her act of locking Aisha in. She was caught red-handed, gentlemen. She is preparing to sell the patentable culture to the Lee Group in Massachusetts for a high-status life. Jae-Hyun remained silent, his inaction seeming to confirm the accusation. Aisha slowly rose from her chair, her back straight, meeting Sora's triumphant gaze. The footage is incomplete, Sora. I was in the vault to save the culture, not steal it. You are the one who tried to commit corporate espionage by locking me inside. He didn't know the truth yet. Sora laughed, a high, manic sound. Your denial is pathetic. I have a pristine corporate record. You, on the other hand, are a cleaner caught on company property with stolen property. Jae-Hyun, you must fire her and press charges immediately, or the investors will lose all faith in your judgment. The room turned its gaze to Jae-Hyun. The air was charged with crushing financial judgment. He stood up slowly, the silence growing heavy, and walked toward Aisha. Jae-Hyun stopped beside her, his proximity a silent, potent shield. He didn't look at Sora, he looked directly at the board. The accusation of theft is serious. And while the footage is damning, a culture base cannot be stolen. It can only be ruined. He turned to Aisha, his voice dropping to a powerful, resonant tone. Aisha, you claim you saved the culture. Prove it. If the culture you handled is healthy and vibrant, and the one Sora was protecting is dead, then she is the saboteur, not you. Sora panicked, her confidence suddenly shattered. She hadn't checked the original vault culture since she had been trapped inside. She looked around desperately, but there was no escaping the logic. Aisha nodded once, a gesture of quiet strength. James, she called out, addressing the technician who had been waiting outside the room. James entered, carrying a sample jar from the main vault, the culture Sora claimed to have protected, and the jar Jae-Hyun had brought back from California, the one Aisha had stabilized. The main vault culture, the one Sora claimed was secure, has completely perished. It is stagnant and chemically dead, James announced, his voice firm with scientific certainty. He then presented Aisha's sample. But this sample, which Aisha took the risk to stabilize, is thriving. It's not just stable, it is alive with the ancient complex enzymes needed for the original recipe. The room buzzed with amazement. The proof was undeniable. Sora's actions, chemical preservation, neglecting the vault, had killed the legacy. Aisha's unauthorized actions had saved it. But that was only the beginning. Sora, desperate, lunged at Aisha. You planned this? You used your peasant witchcraft to confuse everyone. You lied about your background. Aisha stood her ground, calm and unmoving. Jae-Hyun reached out, his hand firmly grasping Aisha's wrist, pulling her gently but decisively behind him. It was a clear, visible act of protection and alliance. He turned to Sora, his gaze now cold, hard, and utterly final. Aisha did not lie about her background. She simply respected my grandmother's final wish to prove her value before she revealed her identity. He pulled a document from his pocket and laid it on the table. Aisha has a Ph.D. in microbial food science from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She has a professional background in traditional fermentation science. She is not a cleaner, she is the chief scientific officer of my family's traditional food foundation, a position granted by my grandfather upon our forced marriage, effective the moment the legacy was threatened. The collective gasp from the board was deafening. David, the influential investor, looked from the stunning, elegant woman standing beside the CEO back to the furious, cornered Sora. She is a doctor of science? And you made her clean the floors? Jae-Hyun looked at Aisha, a deep warmth finally thawing his face. I was arrogant. I was foolish. I married her for status and used her as a human shield. She married me to honor my grandmother and to save our legacy. I have learned my lesson. He turned to Sora, his voice ringing with authority. Sora, your corporate espionage and attempt to sabotage the company are now proven. You are immediately dismissed. Security. He looked at Aisha, a public declaration of his defeat and his love. I married you under obligation, Aisha. But I realized on our trip to California that the only thing that matters is the life you brought back to my family's work, and the honesty you brought back to my life. He took her hand and gently squeezed it. You are the only one who can lead this company into the future. The fate of the Han Group was sealed. The villain is exposed, but is this truly the end of her plot? Share this epic showdown with someone who needs justice, and comment with your favorite moment. The CEO had confessed his love in front of the world. But their marriage was still a contract, and the ultimate choice of love or obligation still remained. The chaos of the boardroom had subsided, leaving only the sound of hurried whispers and the rhythmic clicking of Jae-Hyun and Aisha's footsteps as they left the New York Han Group tower. They didn't go to their separate rooms, they went to the rooftop garden, a secluded, quiet place high above the city, built for moments of clarity. Jae-Hyun was still holding Aisha's hand. The cold corporate exterior he had worn for years was gone, replaced by a vulnerability she had never seen. He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the soft city lights. You orchestrated the entire thing. The humiliation, the risk, the secret save. You were playing the long game to fulfill my grandmother's wish. Look closer. The secret is already out. Aisha nodded simply. Your grandmother knew the legacy wasn't in the profit margin, it was in the trust in the traditional method, and the trust in people who value depth over speed. She knew the moment I proved my scientific value in the boardroom, you would finally see past the status. She gently squeezed his hand. You married me for a quiet shield, Jae-Hyun. But you needed a partner. Jae-Hyun pulled her into a quiet embrace, his arms strong and sure around her. I treated you with such contempt, forcing you into that cleaning uniform. Yet you risked everything for me for the family name. He leaned back slightly, his expression earnest. How can I ever apologize? Aisha smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. You don't need to apologize to me. You need to apologize to the legacy. She led him to a small, enclosed glass structure in the corner of the garden, a greenhouse where he often went to think. Inside, on a small wooden table, was the final, perfectly stabilized jar of the heritage paste, glowing under a focused light. Your grandmother also told me the marriage was null and void if, after 1 year, we had not cultivated trust and love. She picked up the jar. I have fulfilled the trust required for the legacy. But the marriage contract, it's still an obligation, not a choice. What she did next changed everything. Aisha opened the jar, the deep, rich, complex aroma filling the small greenhouse. She took a small sampling spoon and offered it to him. Taste it, Jae-Hyun. Taste the future of the Han Group, the blend of old wisdom and new growth. The blend of my family's patient science from California and yours. Jae-Hyun hesitated, then took the spoon. The flavor exploded on his tongue. It was everything the investors had tasted but more. It wasn't just flavor, it was a memory, a warmth, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt since his grandmother passed away. He swallowed, the sensation lingering deep in his chest. He set the spoon down, his eyes fixed on Aisha. It's life, Aisha. You brought it back to life. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. He didn't open it immediately. The air grew heavy with anticipation. The marriage was a contract imposed by my grandfather, Jae-Hyun admitted, his voice rough with emotion. But I don't want a contract. I want a choice. He knelt down on one knee in the middle of the rooftop garden, the city lights serving as witnesses. You didn't marry me for status, you married me to save my life's work. You are the only person who has ever seen me, the flawed, arrogant man, and still chose to fight for me. He opened the box. Inside was not a diamond ring, but a custom-made ring forged from ancient Korean gold and inlaid with a tiny, dark, highly polished California redwood sample, symbolizing the synergy of their two backgrounds. Aisha, he asked, his voice shaking with sincere vulnerability. I know I have no status to offer you now, only a failing company that you just saved, and a heart that is completely yours. Will you remarry me? Not out of obligation to my grandfather, but out of choice for me, Jae-Hyun? Will you stay and build this legacy, and a new life, with me as my partner, my equal, and my true wife? Aisha's eyes shone with tears, the culmination of all the humiliation and secret struggle finally being acknowledged and rewarded with genuine love. She didn't hesitate. She helped him stand up, holding both his hands. The first contract was a challenge, Aisha whispered, her smile radiant. The second contract is forever. She took the ring from the box and together they slid it onto her finger. It wasn't just a marriage, it was the union of two cultures, two brilliant minds, and two hearts bound by the fight to preserve tradition with integrity. Jae-Hyun leaned in, pulling her close for a long, tender kiss under the quiet brilliance of the city lights. The flavor of the paste, the taste of trust, and the scent of the restored legacy lingered on his lips. He finally had everything: his company, his grandmother's recipe, and his brilliant, tenacious wife. He looked at the vast New York skyline, no longer with financial dread, but with boundless confidence. They had one. What an incredible journey. If you love this story, give it a like right now. Subscribe to our channel for more episodes of high-stakes corporate romance, and let us know your favorite character in the comments.